What's your movie, baby?
If you've turned your radio dial to the far left recently, you might have discovered Tampa Bay's Community Radio, WMNF. Broadcasting from a tiny studio on King Drive, they combine eclectic music, politics, and a professional news desk that gives the public the other side of the news.
The time is 10 to 10, so you do it again. But you ain't gonna tell your friend.
Officials with Chevron USA say that an exploratory natural gas rig could be drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, 27 miles off Pensacola Beach, by this March. Chevron wants to confirm what it suspects is a reservoir of 1.6 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. The permit goes into effect on February 9th. The drilling is opposed by environmentalists, including Ann Whitfield of the Florida Public Interest Research Group.
Gas and oil are often found in the same area or in near proximity.
How did you always want to do this when you were a kid, or?
No, actually, when I went to school, I wanted to be a lawyer.
Oh, did you?
And I still harbor those feelings from time to time. But when I was in college, Vietnam War was still going on. Angola was beginning to erupt. There were a lot of coal mine strikes, and I had worked with coal miners too.
Oh.
And I felt like all these stories weren't getting out. Angola wasn't getting out. It was the truth about what the U.S. was doing in Angola, the truth about why these miners were going on strike. It never got out, and so I joined the campus radio station, which was an early NPR affiliate in the mid-'70s.
What college was that?
That was at Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio. And so I got started, and it turns out that a couple people that I worked with went on to work at National Public Radio, John McChesney and a few other people, and so they were really skilled, and I learned things from them.
There's also the risk of catastrophe if they're hit with oil spill or gas. Often has what's called sour gas in it.
I dug out a proposal that you had sent me a couple years ago. Do you remember that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not everyone that's that keen on investigative reporting, and you are certainly, this seems to be your passion, perhaps.
The whole October surprise thing, I don't think has been settled, and there was a congressional investigation last year, but frankly, I don't think the truth came out during it. We interviewed a man who had gone on trial in Denver for an unrelated incident, but he said he had information about George Bush flying to Paris in 1980 to make a secret deal to keep our American hostages hostage in Iran. And the guy that we interviewed had some credibility because some other things that he was saying at the time turned out to be true, and they were proved true in a trial that took place in Denver. Very complicated, but basically we had this guy on the air, and I think we were the only organization that bothered to interview this guy. He was rather reclusive when we tracked him down, and so he in essence confirmed that George Bush was flown to Paris in 1980 to make this secret deal with the Iranians who were holding our Americans hostage, 52 hostages. I think one of the other stories we broke that I'm proud of is that the Lakeland airport was used to smuggle in cocaine. And
I don't remember that one.
The cocaine came from Central America. A plane loaded with weapons went down to arm the Contras, and then on the way back, the planes, several planes, flew in through the Lakeland airport. And we broke that story.
No kidding. I must not have heard that, because that's awfully close to home. I would have remembered, I think.
Governor Lawton Childs is proposing that the Department of Health and Rehabilitative Services change its name to the Department of Family Services. He says the new name symbolizes the agency's new commitment to build strong families. Hundreds of suggestions were turned in for consideration, some serious and some not. Childs had earlier promised to come up with a new name as part of the welfare agency's restructuring.
I think one of the things that goes on these days is that celebrities have entered the news, and weird crimes have entered the news, so that things like Bosnia, which I think are really important, things like the environment, things like what's happening with all these people who've been experimented on by our government using radiation. Those stories don't get the kind of prominent play that people like Madonna get, that this Bobbitt crime has gotten. This Bobbitt crime has been blown out of proportion. It's a horrible crime, and I don't defend what happened either to the woman or to the man in the case, but I think that every night people are reading and hearing about Bobbitt, and it's crazy. That news has really become sensationalistic, more so than ever before. And
well, why do you think that is? Why are we being distracted with these sensationalist dog and pony shows, or things that are happening in some other part of the world that we can do absolutely nothing about, whereas we should know about local issues and we don't? Well, why is that?
Well, they do it, first of all, for ratings. The sex goes in there because of ratings, and I think...
is it because people are demanding this?
Well, I think because people watch it, but I think the flip side is that reporters aren't doing a good job of explaining some of these environmental stories that have long-term impact, some of these banking stories that have long-term impact. Reporters should be explaining these, making them sexy, so to speak, and letting people know how all this stuff is going to affect their lives. And reporters, I think, sometimes are too lazy to do it, and they have a very low opinion of the public. They think the public doesn't care about the savings and loan crisis. The public doesn't care about the environment, when I think when it really gets down to it, those are the issues that the public really does care about. How are their tax dollars spent? What's going to happen to their kids? What about the air they're breathing and the water they're drinking? And people, reporters in this market and every market across the country, and people sitting there in Washington and New York, are focusing too much on the Bobbitt case this week, and I don't know what's going to be next week.
Why alternative media? Why doesn't the normal media do their job, what we consider should be their job?
If they were to really reveal the day-to-day problems that exist on this planet, then perhaps people would really get a sense of what the multinationals are engaged in, get a sense of, you know, exactly what is transnational capital, who's behind it. Perhaps we would get a better sense that the workers in Mexico and Thailand or Uganda face the same problems as the workers here. Finally, I asked Childs, I said, well, why is there poverty?
Just like that?
They kind of looked at me all dumbfounded, like, who is this numbskull? What kind of obvious question is that to ask? People are poor because they're poor, you know?
And for this evening, that's it for the Drive Time News and Pacifica Report. I'm Robert Lorei. Stay tuned for Traffic Jam with Ed Lehman. This is Commercial Free Community Radio, WMNF Tampa, St. Petersburg.